Is the S25 Ultra a great phone? Yes. Does it feel fundamentally different if you're coming from a Galaxy Note or a Galaxy S series? I definitely think so. Let's get into it. The S25 Ultra has much better ergonomics than before compared to previous phones with the sharp corners that always tended to benefit from having a case on them. But the S25 Ultra with the rounded corners definitely feels easier to use one-handed, and it doesn't feel bottom or top heavy, even when I'm using it without a case. Now, speaking of the S24 Ultra, my favorite feature on that phone was undoubtedly the screen, and I am very pleased that it is here to stay on the S25 Ultra with the addition of Corning Gorilla Armor 2. Of course, I had to do my own accidental drop testing before I had even started reviewing the phone. It fell right out of my pocket, straight onto concrete, not even a scratch, and not even a scuff on the titanium frame. Now, the anti-reflective coating is just great. I can use this in direct sunlight and bright, glary outdoor situations like this one, and I don't feel like I have to squint to see the screen. And it goes to show that you don't actually need to crank up the screen brightness for the sake of marketing when you could just have an anti-reflective coating. I really hope that this becomes a trend across all the other phones that we see in 2025. And one quick tip, something I immediately like to change as soon as I pull this out of the box, is the resolution to QHD+, because it's not set to that by default. My eyes definitely notice the difference when set to the highest resolution compared to the ones below, and I have not noticed a significant impact on battery life either. On the topic of battery life, yes, the capacity is technically the same as the earlier generation, but anecdotally, I found that this phone has actually been giving me slightly longer runtime. I feel like in the past 2 weeks of using it, I haven't actually had to charge it that often. Obviously, if you're really going intense on gaming, I'm not really a phone gamer, that's probably also going to affect battery life. But overall, I've been really pleased with this. I didn't really have any complaints with the S24 Ultra, so I'm not surprised about that. The other huge shift in this phone that makes it feel different than before is, of course, AI, arguably the biggest feature on this phone, I would say. Yes, the S24 Ultra had some AI in it, but it kind of felt like it was slapped on as kind of testing the waters a little bit, perhaps a little bit gimmicky, apart from Gemini. But even a year ago, Gemini was just very, very different to what it is now. On the S25 Ultra, I feel like the AI is there in a much more helpful and universal way, and I feel like it's actually changing how I think about interacting with my phone. For example, I can pull up Gemini and say, can you find me a list of the nearest bookstores within a 1.5 mile radius, and text it to Lexy Savvides? Yeah, I text myself still. And there we are. We have a pretty comprehensive list of bookstores, and it's ready to send to me. Now, there are a few steps that you need to set this up. It won't exactly work like this straight out of the box. You need to make sure that Gemini extensions are turned on, and of course, having all of your Samsung apps and Google apps already connected. But once it's set up, it's kind of set and forget, and it is pretty seamless. Now, this is actually a pretty big shift in how you interact with your phone. I don't know about you, but I am kind of hardwired into thinking I need to interact with my voice assistant by barking a single command at it. So whether that's a Google Assistant or Gemini or even Bixby, when I was using that, this is a completely different way of doing it. So you have to kind of think a little bit more about a natural way of phrasing something in a multi-step command. To me, that's taken a little bit of getting used to. The other AI tool that I found surprisingly useful is the gallery search tool. So if I'm able to go in and ask for finding dog photos at the beach with my voice, it brings up a list of images. But what I really like about this, so I used Smart Switch to move all of my content from the S22 Ultra, and it could find photos not only taken on the S25 Ultra, but also taken from the older phone. And it is interesting to me that the majority of the helpful AI features on this phone are predominantly Google's, rather than Samsung's first. So for example, the AI agents, I saw a demo of that back at Made by Google in 2024 with the launch of the Pixel 9 series. Now the nice thing is, unlike the version that I saw demoed back then, the version on the S25 Ultra actually takes into account multiple different apps, not just Google's own first-party ones, but also Samsung's apps, as well as some third-party ones like WhatsApp and Spotify, and hopefully more to come as soon as they tap into that API. One other big element about why this phone feels quite different is, of course, OneUI 7. Yeah, I know other phones are going to get it, but it comes with it straight out of the box. And the experience has been a lot more seamless to me than earlier iterations of OneUI. The animations are smoother, there's a lot more customization, and things make a little bit more sense to me intuitively. It's just easier to kind of pick it up and know where everything is. It feels like it's borrowing a lot of elements from Google's Material You. And again, it makes it feel a little bit more like just an Android than specifically a Samsung, which I am not mad about. There's also that vertical up drawer. Yay, no more having to do the horizontal scrolling. I'm also a really big fan of the Now bar on the lock screen, which is actually surfacing information that I need pretty quickly. A lot of people compare it to the dynamic island on the iPhone. Arguably, I think this one is a little bit more effective in getting the information across in a timely manner. It updates really seamlessly, and it's easier to use one-handed, especially because it's located at the bottom of the lock screen as opposed to being right at the top. However, it is not all roses. There are some minor issues that do, lessen the experience. The Now Brief, which is separate from the Now Bar. Would have called them something completely different, but hey, I don't work in marketing. I just make silly videos on the internet. What do I know? Anyway, the morning and the night brief as part of the Now Brief gives you different contextual information based on the time of day. However, don't really feel like it's surfacing anything particularly helpful, especially if you already have widgets on your home screen, say for example for like calendar and things like that. You can see at a glance, you can see the weather. It just hasn't really learned enough about me yet, even after 2 weeks. The S Pen, poor old S Pen, I feel like it's really got the short end of the stick on this phone because obviously you've seen the headlines now. They've removed Bluetooth functionality. They've removed things like air actions. Always reuse this as a remote shutter. No, I can't. Yeah, they say you can use your hand and palm actions and voice to, do stuff, but please bring it back. Like the bezel on the Galaxy Watch. Bring it back, bring it back. That's all I have to say about that. So let's talk about the camera. You probably already know that there's not that much difference in hardware compared to the older phone. It really comes down to software and that new 50 megapixel ultra wide camera. I can definitely see an improvement in the photos I take with the ultra-wide camera compared to earlier phones. Still don't think it's perfect. I still think it does struggle a little bit with dynamic range and really contrasty situations, but I will take the better macros and I will take a better quality ultra-wide. Now, one of my favorite features has actually turned out to be the custom filters feature. You can select one of your previous photos to actually change the look and the feel of other photos taken as you go forward. Kind of reminds me of photographic styles on the iPhone, but I do like the fact that you can put your own photo to give it a different vibe. The addition of log video, yay. I wish we had that earlier compared to say something like 8K video, which I still don't use, but maybe I'm in the minority. You can let me know what you think about that one. Now, Samsung talked a lot about nightography, which is a marketing term. It's not a real photography term, or at least I'm adamant that it's not. And the improvements in low light photography compared to earlier phones. I wanted to do a bit of a side-by-side test between the S25 Ultra and the S22 Ultra, because I think that is more of a fair comparison, given that most people are probably upgrading from an older phone like that, to show you some of the differences. The smooth zoom in video has made a significant difference for me when going between different focal lengths. I found that on the S24 Ultra and S22 Ultra in video, when I was switching between the cameras, yeah, didn't look very good, right? But on this phone, it's smoother. Yes, you can still see it, the progression, but I do appreciate that it is getting smoother. And the next generation, the S26 Ultra, is going to be perfect, right? Recording selfie video in the middle of the road because why not? I want to see how good this audio eraser is. It's able to descend from natural kind of constant sounds like the ocean to traffic and road noise.
Of course, now it's stopped.
So if you have an S23 Ultra or S24 Ultra, I don't really see huge compelling reasons to upgrade unless you love trading in your phone and getting a new one every year. No shade. Sometimes I like doing that too. Obviously, the significant upgrade benefits is when you're coming from an earlier phone like the S22 Ultra, you'll really notice the difference, especially when it comes to things like battery life and the processor, which I haven't really talked that much about because it is so seamless. I don't really feel like the need to talk about it because it just does everything I want to when I want it to. But back to that fundamental difference. This honestly doesn't feel like there's much left of the Galaxy Note legacy at all. Now, of course, the design is the big one here, but it's also the things like the removal of functionality within the S Pen. I hope that I am wrong, but it feels like we might be getting prepared for the removal of the S Pen altogether in the next few years. We lost the headphone jack. Yeah, I'm over that one. IR blaster. Okay. Micro SD. Not over that one. And now maybe the S Pen? All that said, I am coming at this from a very particular perspective. I am a long-term Galaxy Note and S series user. You can't blame us for being a little protective of the stuff that we love, right? This is still a fantastic phone. It's just had to make me rethink about what the S series fundamentally is at its core. Okay, what about the value? No, not for the $1,300 list price. I'm talking about the Samsung upgrade program that was recently announced. And also if you're upgrading from an older phone, say such as my trusty S22 Ultra that has been with me through the years. If you trade in that phone, for example, you can get the S25 Ultra for $699, which I think is a really tempting proposition.
Disclosures are super important to me so you can trust who you're getting your information from. The phone in this video was provided to me for review by Samsung, and after the review period is up, it goes straight back to the company. Samsung did provide me with a hotel room to stay in San Jose to cover Galaxy Unpacked, and the company had zero editorial input into the content of this video. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, I'd love for you to support by, giving it a like, subscribing if you want to, dropping me a comment, that would be great. I really, really appreciate it. I know you have a lot of choice in the videos that you can watch about this phone and tech, so thank you for choosing to stick all the way through on mine. See ya!